This is Support Sexy, episode 432, with your romantic fairy godmother, Jenn Burton. Welcome to Support Sexy. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I bring you inspiring women entrepreneurs who share their wins and lessons to help you take your business to the next level. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to have you here. You know, it just would not be the same without you. Now, listen, if you are a woman entrepreneur, whether you're an aspiring woman entrepreneur or you're already into your business and rocking and rolling, I want you to consider podcast guesting. So being a guest on podcasts, not launching your own, being a guest as a strategy for growing your business. It is the method that a lot of savvy entrepreneurs are using nowadays. And right now, you know, I'm passionate about this. Now is the time for women to really make their voices be heard. Podcasting is a great way to grow your email list, expand your platform, share your message, let people know about your business, and to share your expertise. So you must consider podcast guesting. Now, if you want to know how to be an unforgettable podcast guest so the audience remembers you and that other hosts want to invite you on shows again and again, I want you to download my free guide on how to be an unforgettable podcast guest. And you can do that at girlonpodcastgift.com. That's girlonpodcastgift.com. Learn how to be an unforgettable podcast guest for all the right reasons. Now, today I am super excited to welcome our guest, fairy godmother, romantic fairy godmother, Jenn Burton. And Jenn talks to us about dating differently. And I think this is good, obviously, if you're single and a successful single woman, which is her market, if you will, or her target audience. But also, even if you're in a relationship, there's something in here for you, thinking about ways that maybe you can approach your relationship differently or things that you need to check in about yourself. I always say, don't beat yourself up, right? But this is a good episode to check in and see, am I being that person that she's talking about? And how can I do things differently if I want to make my current relationship better or my future relationship better? So some of the things that Jenn and I talk about are 3 ways to date differently, what her quote unquote mantourage technique is. Make sure you listen out for that. And make sure you listen out for how to get a free guide on her mantourage technique just for Support Sexy listeners. Also, how do you attract your ideal partner? 2 keys to online dating. My friends and I talk about online dating all the time. I have a lot of friends, let me say, who have gotten married to people that they dated online. So yeah, it works. Even though now I know it's a little different. There are different ways to do it. Jenn and I talk a little bit about that. We also talk about the trouble with chemistry. Are you looking for chemistry in your relationships? Jenn has some thoughts on that. All right, so I know you're going to enjoy this episode, fun and informative. So now, without further ado, Jenn Burton. So Jenn, thank you so much for being here for an episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to chat with you.
Thanks, Elayne. I'm very excited to be here with you.
Excellent. So our first question, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
Well, I have had an ongoing relationship with entrepreneurship. My parents were entrepreneurs and had their own electrical contracting business as I was growing up. And I decided at a young age, I'm not sure if I fell in love with entrepreneurship or the fact that I wanted my own money. So at that point in time, when I was very young, I started thinking of ways to sell different things. And that started in elementary school, all the way through middle school and high school, where I would go to Sam's Club and buy bulk candy and start selling it at school illegally. And just trying to figure out different ways I could orchestrate the making of money.
It's funny. I've heard the story about different people, different environments, wherever they grew up, selling the candy illegally. I feel like they're the most enterprising entrepreneurs I know. So it's like I was going to make money somehow, and I was going to sell this candy for a markup. After buying it in bulk. I love it.
And the consequences did not bother me whatsoever.
Exactly. It's like I got caught and I had to stop. It's no big deal. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in a suburb of Houston, Texas.
Okay. So how would you, other than enterprising, how would you describe a young Jenn growing up outside of Houston, Texas?
Ooh, young Jenn. Young Jenn was a very curious girl. I grew up in quite a dysfunctional family, so I had quite a few insecurities about life in general. But at the same time, as you mentioned, I was enterprising as well as bold, which insecure and bold, it's kind of an interesting combination. And I was very creative.
When you say insecure and bold, how did you, looking back now, how would you say you managed that during that time?
I'm not quite sure I managed it effectively, to be honest, but I processed it the best I could. Funny enough, I think at a very young age as well, I ended up being kind of the counselor for most of the neighborhood because I lived in a neighborhood that happened to be a lot more dysfunctional than my family, so it worked out. I guess I took a lot of the insecurities and the boldness and tried to help people strategize, to construct strategy around their lives as well.
In what ways, if you don't mind sharing, would you say that either your family or your environment was dysfunctional?
Well, I had a very alcoholic father growing up who is now recovered, thank goodness. And then I had a enabling yet button-pushing mother who also ended up with a very severe alcohol problem. And they were very abusive towards each other verbally, physically, and my father was very verbally abusive towards me growing up.
I'm sorry you went through that.
Well, it makes us who we are today, right?
It makes us who we are today.
So yeah, I mean, and what is it, like 85% of the population has grown up in some sort of dysfunction. So I don't feel particularly special for it anymore.
That's such a great, well, first of all, thank you for sharing that, opening up and sharing that with us. But you are so right. And that's just something I think more of us need to remember, whatever that dysfunction looks like, especially when it comes to family. Can't choose your family, right?
Exactly.
Your family is your family. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and that's something I've had to come to terms with over the years because there's a huge push out there with, removing yourself from toxic people and things like that. And the thing is that you can remove all of them, but then sometimes within all of your family could be gone. And there's still a very important connection. I know you don't choose your family, but there's still something. After I lost my mother in 2009, I realized, hey, there's a huge piece of me that's missing, even though it was an extraordinarily dysfunctional relationship at times. So you have to manage those connections. I don't necessarily think that you have to cut them out completely unless they're on a level that puts you in imminent danger.
Mm-hmm. How would you advise, because it's interesting, relationships, which we'll talk more about with you, is very much a part of who you are in your business. But in speaking about this with family, I just had a conversation with a friend who was talking about managing a relationship in her life with a family member that's always has been difficult. But I think now as an adult, it's even more difficult. Maybe because now once you feel like you have a choice, it's sort of the choice becomes a difficulty, right? Just as what you said, you think about cutting the people off, but they are still your family. And if they're very close to you, immediate family wise, you'll feel like a piece is missing. So what would you say your advice is, either based on experience or things that you tell people you work with now about how to manage situations that might be toxic, but for whatever reason, you might still want that person in your life somehow?
I personally recommend people to take it in small bites. So instead of, a lot of us overcommit, and especially women, we end up being caretakers for a lot of these people in our family. So instead of doing that is, really stepping up and saying, yes, I want a relationship with you, but this is how I want it to go. And you don't necessarily have to have that precise conversation with somebody, but go ahead and construct it that way, whatever that looks like, because otherwise, you can make your life all about them and the toxicity. So
you get to decide what it looks like.
Yes. And how much, how long, when, all that, take it on your terms. It's not just about what they want and when, because a lot of toxic people are very, very demanding, and they're very good at making you feel guilty about that. So take it in those small bites and then take a long break if you need to.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Take a break if you need to, and go to therapy if you need to.
Like exactly.
Support all of those things, whatever it takes. Have experience with this, whatever it takes. Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. So what would you say then was the point that you decided to sort of make relationships, other kinds of relationships, romantic especially, a part of your business and who you are as an entrepreneur?
Well, that kind of happened upon me with, there was no intention going into it. So I grew up in very dysfunctional relationships, or watching very dysfunctional relationships, and I became very good at creating dysfunctional relationships. But I also realized amongst that dysfunction, my parents were giving me this insanely valuable training ground for romantic connections that I didn't realize for a long time. So my mother was in all of their dysfunction, what I realized is that whole time my mother was a love addict, and she always needed validation from men. And she would get extraordinarily angry with my father when his attention didn't look exactly the way she wanted it to look. And she ended up going, and she would cause a lot of fighting. Not that my father wasn't at fault sometimes, because he definitely was. He was a rageaholic on top of being an alcoholic. So they would have, they would cause this constant conflict with each other. They'd get really heated. She would sometimes go and be with another man or create another relationship. They'd have more friction, and then all of a sudden they'd have the getting back together phase. And that cycle kept repeating itself throughout my childhood. And through this whole time, I hear stories of men being the unfaithful ones all the time. But what I was seeing was my dad was never unfaithful, even though he was extraordinarily, and he was a very angry man, but he wasn't unfaithful, and he was extraordinarily faithful to my mother throughout the relationship until my mother passed away and he remarried. And that narrative going on throughout that really hit me in my first marriage, towards the end of my first marriage. And I realized that men aren't always the ones that are going outside of the relationship, and that there are actually quite a few men that really wanted to work with women, and women, and myself included, are not acknowledging the power that we have in the context of a relationship. So after about 3 years of a very dysfunctional relationship I had created with my ex-husband, again, I'm not the only one at fault, but I finally started to own my responsibility, and we decided to separate. And I moved to another state in order to have this separation, because I needed to determine if I really wanted to keep working on a relationship we'd been working on for 3 years of marriage, and I think a year or two of dating, if I wanted to keep working on it or if I was done. And during that discovery phase, I started tapping into resources where I really started to see how women are the powerhouses in romance, and that when you work with women, you change the dynamic of romance, because they have all of this power that they have no idea they have. And it's beyond sex. It's about your sensuality. It's about your presence. It's about your attention. Men are really wired, when given the opportunity, to want to make you happy. So why not capitalize on that, for lack of a better word? And when I started doing dating during that separation, we decided to start dating and actually went into filing for divorce. And as I was dating, I did it in a completely different manner. I decided I was done with all the dating rules I thought I knew. I started studying it. I started experimenting. I started taking classes for women's sensuality and moving into that phase of my life and realizing that for the first time, men were crawling out of the woodwork to be with me. And that had never happened before. And they wanted to make me happy and to pleasure me. They wanted to become my boyfriend right away, which was something that had never happened either. I mean, I'd had some relationships and I'd met some great guys, but I always ended up making it dysfunctional somehow or setting it up to repeat some of the patterns of my childhood. And now I realize that in the course of this dating experiment, that I had the tools to create love that made me happy and excited about for the first time.
Wow. Now, what would you say were 3 things from that experiment or experience that you feel made it different this time? Because you said you were dating differently, trying things differently than you had before. Are there 3 things, or maybe it's just one key thing that you noticed was a big change that sort of made men approach you differently, want to be with you, or even just your experience of it overall? Because some of us find dating painful or something that we have to do as opposed to something we enjoy doing. So what was it for you that changed the game?
I do have 3 for you. The first one is that dating is actually meant to be fun. And if it's not fun, you're doing it wrong.
Yes. Oh, my goodness. I have to interrupt just one second.
Yes.
You're so right. And I'm guilty. I'm the person guilty of dating feels like a chore. But I remember, quick story, going to a salon. This woman, Tasha, who works at the salon in New York at Idris Salon, which I love. But I was talking about dating and I was like, moaning about it. And she said, dating is supposed to be fun. I love dating. And just the way she said it just really struck me like, wow. Why? I mean, it was almost like she was floating because, and I had never seen someone, as you said, think of it as fun. Just, I love dating. You meet new people no matter what happens. So anyway, you're so right. More of us have to take that stance on it.
Yeah, so when you have the right tools, you definitely can make it fun. It doesn't mean that you will never fall on your knees and skin your knees. Even Jesus did that.
Right.
But you do have the opportunity, this incredible opportunity that leads into a relationship if you want it to. So why not set it up right? Why not go into a relationship with a bang and have an amazing time? So that's the first thing. Dating does not have to be a chore. It does not have to be a necessary evil. It can be really fun. Second thing is that it's time for women to focus on what they really want. And most women will start, and I love women, don't get me wrong, but they'll start whining, saying, I know what they want. I say most women don't really know what they want. And dating is that opportunity to explore what you want romantically. If you start to just take a couple steps back and say, hey, maybe because I've been so focused on my career, maybe I've been so focused on other toxic friends, family, things like that, I can't really identify right at the second what it is I want, and that's okay. And start to step into that and use that. That's the question you're going to ask yourself constantly. What is it I really want in this moment? Not what do I think he wants? Not what do I think they want? What do I really want? And how can I create that for myself if somebody's not contributing to that right now?
Right. And do you think as part of that includes dating people you might not normally date outside of your quote unquote type, as people say, or, I have friends who say, oh, but whatever thing they can find wrong with this person before they've even gone out with them.
Yep.
Like, how do you know that's what's quote unquote wrong with this person? You have no idea, but it's just they've decided they don't fit whatever is standard, so they're not going to go out with them. So is that part of it too? Yes.
Women disqualify men so much. It's not even funny. And we do it way more than men disqualifying women.
Right.
It is, you are right, Elayne, right on. You totally hit that. It is about exploring outside of what I call your dating box, the idea of what you think is sexy and attractive, because I can guarantee you are disqualifying a man that can make you feel amazing in all parts of your life, below the belt, above the belt. It make you feel great, somebody that you can really journey with versus do life for.
And what do you think about the discussion about chemistry?
Oh, you and I could talk for hours on chemistry. Okay, so I'm a huge fan of not having instant chemistry.
Okay.
And I'm a very big fan of not that all arranged, okay, I'm not saying that, I'm not promoting arranged marriages, but I'm just going to use that as an idea here. So think about the idea of arranged marriage is that you come together and maybe you don't know yourself, you don't know each other that well. And then you have a whole lifetime to heat things up. Okay. What most people are doing right now is they're coming together. They're looking for that instant, insane chemistry. And if it's not there right away, then forget it. I've disqualified him. And then if you do have it, then all of a sudden you have not learned how to build it. Chemistry, in my opinion, is malleable. So chemistry is dependent on how you feel when you're around somebody. So I remember when I first started dating, the first guy that asked me out, he wasn't physically attractive at all. I first started dating after when my husband and I split up. He wasn't physically attractive at all. I don't think there's anybody that would go, hey, man, that guy looks good. But the way he took care of me, the way he prioritized the fun that he wanted me to have, the way I felt around him, I became insanely attracted to him. And when we ended up having sex, it was just off the charts. The chemistry blew up. But in that first conversation, I think it probably wasn't until our third date until I was like, wow, I really can't stop thinking about this guy. He sends chills down my spine. And the same thing happened with my now husband when we met. Exactly the same thing. He was your, I'm not typically attracted to the standard good looking guy. But that's what he was. He was your standard good looking. Most women would say, hey, he's a great looking guy. I wasn't attracted to him at the beginning for that reason, but because of his effort he put into, the way, what I saw of him, the way he wanted me to feel when I was around him, the laughter that we had between each other, the chemistry, even after we recently celebrated our 11-year anniversary, the chemistry is insane still. It can fluctuate at times, don't get me wrong, when we have other things going on in our life, or maybe we have some friction with each other, but we know how to get back there. And women need to understand that it's how you feel when you're around him. It's the fun that you two can have together. And it's the same for him. So even if you're not what you think is his ideal woman, or what he's even mentioned as his ideal woman, it doesn't matter. For men and for women, chemistry boils down to how you feel when you're together.
Right. And I think it's so important to what you said about the idea that chemistry can fluctuate as your relationship goes on. So even if you had it so much in the beginning, it's going to fluctuate as you go along. Or if you didn't, the same kind of thing. Some of us are just going off that immediate chemistry and wanting that, not thinking that, well, let me see who this person is as a person. Exactly.
And by the way, I have to mention this because a lot of women disqualify men for this. Men get caught in your beauty all the time. Even the most confident of men get really nervous around women that they find attractive. So if he isn't the smoothest talker when you first meet, if he's a little awkward, if he kisses you awkwardly. I remember one of the first times that my husband and I had sex, we came up so hard we about knocked each other out.
What?
Yes.
What?
Yes, we almost knocked each other out because we came up and hit heads so hard.
That's adorable.
Yes, but those moments are the moments you're going to have later, but don't disqualify men because things aren't, it doesn't have that perfect smooth
It's actually
entrance.
kind of cute when they're nervous.
It's very cute. So give them a chance. Let them warm up. Go on activity dates versus just sitting across from each other. So It's easier to talk when you have something else that you can focus on as well, instead of focusing on, he's thinking, oh my God, she's so beautiful. Is she going to think I'm an idiot? Is she going to think this? And we don't think guys think that, but they are. They're going through all of that just like you are. So take a deep breath and do something.
Yeah. What would you say was the thing that, and maybe it might have been just your new understanding of dating and relationships overall from experience, but what would you say was the thing that kept you going out on these dates with your husband and even the guy before, after the first 2 or 3 dates you didn't have the chemistry? Was it just still something about them that let you say, okay, let me try again? Because sometimes we don't get past the first or second date to even experience that.
Yes, I hear you. I really appreciate you bringing that up because that was actually my third thing I was going to mention earlier. And it's something that a technique I developed that's called mantourage dating. Now, mantourage dating is essentially dating more than one man at a time until you find your forever man, or indefinitely if you so choose. This is a very nuanced version from things like I'm sure a lot of women have heard of cycles and things like that. So essentially, you're dating multiple men. That's exactly what I started to do, and I realized instead of disqualifying men, that if I go back to I believe it was the second thing we were talking about, where I asked myself what it is I really want. So I would, if I had a date with a certain guy that weekend, I would just, assess, would I really like to go out on a date with them? Would I really like to explore who I am romantically? Can I go into this scene if there's potential chemistry? I didn't actually I focused more on, let's see how much fun I could have with each man, regardless of the situation, because I started to learn that the more fun I had, the more chemistry could develop. So it was all an experiment. It was this great, fantastic romantic experiment where I didn't have to have these rules and I didn't have this end game at the time. I knew eventually that I wanted to get married and I wanted to be in a long-term relationship. But since, I'd already done recently the marriage thing, why not give myself the space to say, you know what? Here, have an amazing romantic experience. Let things develop. Enjoy your time with each of these men and start really seeing the good in men. See how they want to step up for women. See who they want to be around women. Men, I found, thrive in appreciation. And if you provide that platform for them, all of a sudden they open up, just like we do when they provide security for us, fun, things like that. They open up and just want to do anything they can to love, adore, and cherish you.
Mm-hmm. Now, what would you say about the period before you're actually dating? So something you mentioned earlier was just something changed about you that even made men more attracted to you and want to date you. Are there any tips that you have for women who may feel like they're in a drought with just even attracting men or partners?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. The first thing I definitely recommend is, sitting down and thinking about what you want in your life, not just in your romantic life, what it is you want in your life. Are there things, most of us as entrepreneurs, as working women, we're overscheduled. We're doing way more than we really have an emotional space for. So having it all, I believe I heard you say this on another podcast. You can have it all, but you can't necessarily do it all
along, right?
Mm-hmm. And so the first thing I would do is start to assess that. What are some things that I can eliminate from my life? Because I do have women who come to work with me and they just don't have time to date. They have no time for romance or love because they have packed out their lives. And they think that that's the way life has to be. I'm encouraging women these days to keep pushing back, even if it's with an employer, get better boundaries, setting time. A lot of women are just doing it because they're so afraid of somebody being upset with them if they haven't overcommitted their time and their energy. Mm-hmm. So I want women to stop overcommitting their time and their energy and start renegotiating that so that they can have space to date, to enjoy it. If you're too busy, you're not going to enjoy it because you don't have any emotional space for it. You don't have any, physical space either for it. Mm-hmm. So sit down and do that. See that first. The second piece of that is to start to change your perception of dating. So what does dating look like if it's actually fun? What does that look like for me? Most women can't define fun in dating. Make a list. What kind of dates would I love to go out with on?
That's good.
You can make an entire list. In fact, when I help women, one of my favorite ways, because it's the easiest way and it taps into the largest pool of single males, is online dating. Most women hate online dating. Well, there are two keys to online dating. The first one is you have to have a great profile and good pictures. Good, clear, no MySpace angle pictures. Okay? That's really important. Second piece, because that's the clicking point. Second piece, what seals the deal with the high quality guys is to have a really well-written profile, a profile that, captures how much fun it is to be with you as a woman. And I'm not talking about making stuff up. I can tell you now, every woman out there is fascinating already. And if she illustrates that in her profile, she's going to start to attract a different type of guy. And I hear it all the time. Online dating doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. It does work. You need to do something different. You need to make a tweak here or an overall here. And then on top of that, while you're doing that, start making your list of all the dates you want to do. Guys are going to ask you, what would you like to do? Or they're going to ask you, do you want to go here or do you want to go get a drink here? And then you can start to say, you know what? I'm not really big into the first drink or coffee dates. How about we do something like go get ice cream at the park instead? Mm-hmm. Okay, little things like that. And you're going to start to see that guys that are worth your time, and there are a lot of them, by the way, they're actually going to say yes. And you're going to start to see how much men really want to be there for you and to do things for you and to make you happy. And that's going to start changing. You'll get tired of the crappy guys who don't pay attention to you.
It'll be easier to weed those guys out.
You'll
know
easier.
What great dates are like.
Yes, and you'll start to get a distaste for it, which is exactly what happened with me and why I decided this is where I need to, help women the most, is show women how if they just change and tweak a few things in their lives, they can have men stepping up for them as well, and they can enjoy it as much as I did.
Something that I've discovered too is that you can have a great date with a guy that you eventually don't necessarily think is a long-term relationship. Or I was going to say a guy you don't like, but I mean, you might like them as a person, but you can still have just some of the points that you mentioned here. You're thinking about ways to have fun with this person, experience a good time, going for ice cream or whatever kind of fun things. You can still have fun even if that person isn't your quote unquote ideal person, if you already sort of have that feeling. But do you find that women should just be even more open to that? This is all about me having fun, having a good time with this person, however this turns out. I think we put so much weight on the outcome before we even know who the person is.
I feel like I sent you things to say to me. That's so perfect.
Send me my check later, Jenn.
I'm on it.
You're on it.
Absolutely. I have to say that, we disqualify men because we think that there's no potential and outcome. But let me tell you a couple of stories. There were two men in particular that I knew that physically I wanted to see where it went, but I didn't think that it was ever going to develop chemically or develop with chemistry. But I decided I wanted to go out with them anyways, and I wanted to feel what it felt like for them to treat me well, and I wanted to have a great time with them and appreciate them. And both of these men, within months after dating me, ended up meeting the loves of their lives. So I think when we do, actually I know, and I've seen it enough times to confirm this, I know when we stop looking at the outcome, when we stop looking at the outcome and really enjoy the moment, we create space not only for our love in our lives, but we create space for them. They get to see what it feels like to be with a woman that truly appreciates them, that enjoys them. And they're going to go out and look for that again in someone else.
That is beautiful. And it's such a way to be of service to someone in the midst of dating. You know what I mean? Like it sounds like it's very much, as I am learning, who you are and what you've done, what you continue to do for women and as part of your business and that kind of thing. But even for men too, creating space for love, really.
Exactly. Because we all deserve to have what we want romantically, and we all deserve to be with people who appreciate us, who love us, who cherish us, who will be there for us. And so we can start setting that up for ourselves in the dating space and for men. And women just are not recognizing this as much as they should, but if they start looking around, they'll start to see it. Men want to make us happy, but the truth is they can't. We have to make us happy, and they can contribute to us. And what we're doing and convoluting the relationships, we're pushing them back, saying, no. This isn't the way to make me happy, blah, blah, blah. But we don't know what it is that actually makes us happy. So we have to focus on that first, and then give men the space to contribute to that happiness, but not make them responsible for it.
Now, how did you translate all of this experience that you had in your own life with dating, and then learning just different things about yourself, about dating, about men, their responses, etc.? How did you translate all of that into the business that you've created with being a romantic fairy godmother to successful women?
Well, it happened upon me. In the women's sensuality group, the classes I was taking, I was having such an amazing time and having so much fun dating that women started coming to me asking me for advice, which I was giving out for free at that time. Mm-hmm. In 2010, I had a woman approach me who asked me to teach her everything, and if she could pay me for it. And I was like, sure, you can pay me. Okay, I'm good with that. Mm-hmm. And it started to evolve from there. Now, I hid behind it for a while because I didn't feel super secure in teaching it to the world. I tried to open a brick and mortar business, and finally by 2012, I was like, you know what? I'm done hiding behind what I know I'm really good at and what I love doing the most.
The brick and mortar business was something totally different.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. And I ended up falling on my face with it because it wasn't me. And that's okay. It was a great learning experience. But I realized I was hiding behind that. Mm. So I knew that most of the majority of my joy comes from connecting with women in this space and helping them outside of the space as well, because I do a lot of strategy, because your outside life, your career, all of that affects your love life as well. We look at them as very separate entities, but they're not. They're all interconnected. So I ended up doing a lot of strategy for women and I had all these different resources that I was learning and sharing and then giving to these women, and their lives started to open up as well. And they were able to create space for the things that they wanted to happen in their love life.
Now, you have so many testimonials, beautiful testimonials, and I'll make sure I link to Jenn's website, jennburton.com, right? And you have so much great feedback from women on there talking about their work with you and how it's helped them find relationships or enjoy dating and have fun dating. So I'll make sure I have that. But I'm curious, a lot of the women mention the Courage Kit. So yes. I want to know what the Courage Kit is and how it works. Tell our audience about that.
Oh, the Courage Kit, it's my baby. It's my program it's a group program where I have women from all over the world come together and go through a virtual course and then connected with group calls and a secret Facebook group where we get to share all the ins and outs, and I give them all the tools that helped me and much, much more. And we collaborate together going through an extraordinarily fun dating experience and turning it around. Some women are making 180-degree turns. Some were just making tweaks. Some are just learning to frame men differently in their minds so that men have the opportunity to step up in their lives. Some women are recognizing for the first time that they're really attractive, and men really truly find them attractive. So why keep living in oblivion? There's just so many different pieces to it, but it boils down to it is the tools that I used in my own love life, plus tools that I have learned to help women facilitate creating what I call magical dating experiences.
Mm-hmm. So is there a way for me to link to the Courage Kit, or is it something that I didn't see a direct link for it? Is that something I can get from you maybe after? So that
Absolutely.
People can find out more about it?
Yeah, it's thecouragekit.com.
Oh, there you go, yes. Jenn. I love it. Thecouragekit.com. Excellent. All right. So everyone can check that out, but I will have a link to it. But so many great things were said about it. And it's like, what is this Courage Kit? I must ask her about this. This is wonderful. Now, I have to ask you, we have an audience, of course, where there are women who date women also. Mm-hmm. So does the Courage Kit have tools and things in there that will help with that as well? Is it just all kinds of relationships and learning how to
I would think that the tools would have, but I wouldn't want to actually say that for sure. I would think that the tools would be very helpful, but I don't consider myself an expert in women-on-women dynamic, mm-hmm. although I love the dynamic. I just don't consider myself an expert in it. Mm-hmm. And I need to look and see if there's somebody else that I would recommend for that, because I would love.
That's a good idea. You two can refer people to each other.
That would be great. So if you know of somebody as well, I don't want to say that I'm an expert by any means, nor I've had gay men come to me as well. And I tell them the same thing as much as I love you, I don't feel like I am the best option for you.
I am going to do some research and see if I can find someone that maybe you can talk to. See if you two can connect there. That would be great. There you go. Because support is sexy, Jenn. That's what we're all about around here. Excellent. So what would you say that your support network looks like, either personally or in your business, or both?
Right now, my support network is my immediate family is really, really great support network for me. Plus I have a lot of, no, I'm sorry. I don't have a lot. I don't know why I said that. I have probably a handful of really great female entrepreneurs that I love to connect with. And I think one male that I really love to connect with on a regular basis. And that's my support system right now. And it is phenomenal. I'm not going to lie.
Mm-hmm. And in what ways is it phenomenal?
Just you know what it feels like to be able to reach out to connect with somebody. For instance, my husband, he's great, but he doesn't understand all the entrepreneurial aspects of everything that I am doing. Mm-hmm. And
that crazy entrepreneur life.
Yes, he does it, especially the feminine version of it, which is something that's really important to me, because I don't want to live in a masculine paradigm all the time. Mm-hmm. I want us women to tweak things to how it works for us. But he's very, very supportive, but he doesn't always get it. And sometimes I'm looking at him, I'm telling him something, he's trying to be loving and supporting, and I can see his eyes just slowly glazing over. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Which sometimes he sees it in my eyes too when he starts talking about his career. And I'm going, no, I love you, honey. I just don't feel like going there right now.
I don't know what you're talking about. That's great.
But, especially with my female friends, I can reach out to them over the phone and say, oh, goodness, this is this. And I'm so excited about this. One thing I don't think women do enough, even entrepreneurs, I think we get caught up in all the BS. And yeah, there can be a lot of BS. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot on the to-do list. But I don't think we celebrate enough with each other. Mm-hmm. I love being able to reach out and say, you know what happened? Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this, because that gives you that dopamine, adrenaline, that whole chemical rush to your brain that gets you excited again about the things that you're doing when you're able to share it. Celebration is sexy.
Yes.
Celebration
is very sexy. And I think, as you said, it gives you the dopamine shot, but it also gives energy to that thing. Mm-hmm, as opposed to just keeping it to yourself, sort of almost hiding it or not wanting to share it. That's excellent. What would you say is the greatest challenge you faced as an entrepreneur so far?
Social media. I'm not one. I don't have that. I want to stop and video or let's see, or take a picture of my life. I just want to sit there and enjoy the conversation you and I are having. And I'm not saying that people who do that, it's wrong. I get it. I see the purpose in it. I see the benefit of it, but it's really challenging for me to want to have to stop and do that and interrupt that moment. Plus, I'm not a huge fan of social media for dating. I actually think it can be very harmful in the initial phases of dating. I recommend women not, until they're closer to an exclusive relationship, to not Facebook connect unless they already are there, and that's the way they met them. But to not, become Facebook friends or Snapchat friends. By the way, I'll just totally confess, I don't even have Snapchat, so I don't even know how that works.
Me neither,
but,
right? I just got my name on there, but I don't use it. Yeah,
I don't even have that because I don't know what I'm doing. It scares me. It frightens me. But I think social media really helps foster a lot of doubts in dating. And I think if you just don't go there right at the beginning, that's something for when you're closer, like I said, to an exclusive relationship or a good friendship, then that's when the time that you connect there.
In what ways then are you moving past your dislike of social media as an entrepreneur? Because it's not a necessary part of business. Sometimes I feel like the message is that it's necessary, but is it really? Entrepreneurs didn't have it for many, many years.
And they still, people are making money. So I don't know. I have this good girlfriend who she's telling me she does a lot of networking versus that. I've done a lot more of online stuff for a while, and I have a social media presence. It's not a super large one because I don't focus on it, but I'm still going back and forth on it. So I use it for content because I create tons of free content. And that's the way I like to curate my business, as I don't want to be on Facebook Live all the time, because I don't want to have to do my hair necessarily to get on.
That's what I told you today, right? My hair's not done. I'm like, I love this podcast audio all the way with
exactly. And I find some, especially with podcasting, because we have our own podcast as well, is it's more intimate. It's you're right in somebody's ear where they can take you in, instead of having to be, I think visually as a society, we've been over-processed. We're overstimulated. There's something very special about, being able to close your eyes and just hear. Years ago, I used to teach hot yoga, and that was one of the things that we learned is because the class was auditory. Instead of getting up there and demonstrating, we were helping people develop their auditory skills again. And learning to listen, because as a society, we're so visually stimulated. And there's something really special about lessons sinking into your soul. In my opinion, of course, there's no way I can prove it, but it feels like they're really sinking into you when you just hear them, and you are able to process without having to look at something to process it.
I always say I might be biased because obviously I love podcasts and podcasting, but I do think that's one of the reasons that it's becoming more popular, aside from the fact that more of us like to get information now on the go. But I do think, as you said, there's almost this intimate experience with people, because I've been a journalist for 20 something years, written pieces and had people respond to them, of course, which is always great. But I've never had as much of a strong response from people that I meet who have seen, my byline, or in this case, heard my voice, than I have with podcasting. They feel like they know me, and they do, because I share a lot of my personal business, but still it's just a different kind of connection. It's almost like a conversation, even though I'm not hearing back from them immediately. So I totally agree with you.
Well, Elayne, and like I told you before we started, I could listen to you for hours. You have that voice that just draws you in. It's seductive. It's knowledgeable. It's just it's earthy. Wow. I get it. I know why women are responding to you that way. No doubt.
Thank you. Affirmations is my love language. I appreciate that.
Oh, I got it. Good. Yay.
So tell us about your podcast.
Yes, Single Smart Female. I have a co-host who is Steph, and Steph is engaging in mantourage dating, and of course I talk about all the things that I teach and all the different courses, and we have conversations, and we have how-tos. We also take submissions from women all around the world who send us these questions about how to negotiate the different things in their dating life. And it's a really fun conversation. Now, we're not as PC as you are here, Elayne. We have potty mouths.
You get into it.
Yes, we do. Actually, more me than anything. I have a really bad potty mouth. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, you've been good.
I know I've been really good. I did that for you.
Oh. We have potty mouths sometimes too. But
I didn't know that. I wanted to respect the
space.
Yes.
I get it.
Respect the beautiful space that you created here, not and not destroy it with my foul mouth. But we have an insane amount of fun on Single Smart Female, and the response. By the way, you want to talk about great marketing tools and the connection that we were talking about earlier. That has been the single most effective marketing tool for my business is the podcast. It's been incredible, and as we just circled to a year of podcasting, and it really has taken off, and it's been so much fun and so valuable.
Excellent, love it. So in closing, Jenn, if you think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be and what would you say?
That would no doubt be my mother. And as dysfunctional as our relationship was, she, in her own strange way, always believed in me. And she taught me so much that it's actually one of the biggest reasons I do what I do. Not only do I love it, but I want women to see the opportunities that my mother didn't see in her own dysfunction, and be able to show who they are. And she was a really wonderful person, a very giving person, as dysfunctional as she was, but be able to, show all of those great pieces of themselves without having to be tormented by the other things in life that can really take a toll on you.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. Now, what would you say are the ways that we can support you? Tell everyone again, websites, all the ways to connect with you. Well, social media. We know you're not doing it a lot, but tell us anyway, and I'll make sure I link to everything.
Well, I definitely have a social media presence. It's there.
Right.
There's a lot of great content.
I'm with you. I'm like that too. I'm like, this is just to share what I'm doing, but sometimes that can feel like a chore.
Yes. I actually have a page put together for your listeners, Elayne.
Oh.
Yes. So you can connect with me. It's at Jenn, Jenn, 2 N's, ladies, 2 N's, Burton.com/sexy. And I'll have a free gift there for them if they'd like to take advantage.
We like that. That's our love language. Free gifts. Excellent. JENNBURTON.com/sexy.
Yes.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. This was, as you said earlier, I could talk to you all day. It's just about, I could talk about love and dating. Now I need to start doing it more, but we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
But excellent. Thank you so much for sharing your tips and advice, of course, but also for sharing so much of your story. I really appreciate you trusting me and us with all of that. And I just, respect you for what you've been able to do as an entrepreneur, but also in your own journey coming from family or relationships that were dysfunctional and just really translating it into a way where you can be of service to other women. So thank you for that.
And again, thank you for having me. This was really a lot of fun.
Excellent. Now, before you go, what's a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners about anything?
I want to say that life has so many options. Be confident in whatever option you take. And even if it doesn't turn out the way that you want it to, make it more fun than you've ever made anything else. Just enjoy it. If you fall, make falling fun.
Make falling fun. I love that. That needs to be on a t-shirt. Jenn, thank you so much. Hold on just a second.
Okay.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Jenn. To find out more about her, to get that free mantourage guide, to find out what she's up to, and to connect with her, make sure you go to supportissexypodcast.com. Go to that search icon at the top and just search Jenn. Jenn. Her show notes page will pop up with all of the links, the resources, and the ways to get in touch with her. Supportissexypodcast.com and just search Jenn. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. As I always say, it would not be the same without you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And make sure that we are connected on social media. I am at Elayne Fluker. The podcast is at Support is Sexy. The podcast, the community. I love connecting with you all. So let's make sure we keep the conversation going. Tell me about your dating escapades. Maybe you have some tips for me. Let me know. All right. So let's make sure we're connected. Thank you again for being here. And until we chat again, always remember that you deserve support. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.